Carl Jung explains how to overcome self-sabotage, stop fighting, start understanding. What if the only thing holding you back is you? Welcome to DepthMind, where we dive beneath the surface of thought, emotion, and the unconscious to uncover what truly shapes our lives. In this video, we explore why self-sabotage isn't a sign of weakness, but a message from parts of ourselves we've long ignored. Drawing on Carl Jung's deep psychological insights, we'll gently guide you through the hidden patterns behind fear, procrastination, and self-doubt. If you've ever found yourself standing at the edge of growth, only to turn back, this is your invitation to pause, reflect, and reconnect. The journey to healing doesn't begin with fixing yourself, but with listening. And it starts now. When you're close to what you long for but end up holding yourself back. There are moments in life when something greater feels just within reach. A new opportunity. A new connection. A step forward. That could change everything. You feel it in your chest, that quiet pull towards something meaningful. You see the possibility. You sense the path unfolding. And yet, just as you reach out, something inside retreats. Your hand hesitates. Your heart skips. 1,000 silent doubts rise to the surface. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if I lose it all? This hesitation doesn't always come from logic. It doesn't come from the external world. It comes from somewhere within, a quiet resistance that holds you back. Often without you even knowing why. People call it self-sabotage. But behind that label lies a misunderstanding. This isn't simply weakness. It isn't laziness or a lack of discipline. It is something deeper, quieter, and far more human. The truth is, much of our struggle does not begin in the conscious mind. It begins in the parts of us we've ignored, denied, or buried. Many of us have been taught that strength means pushing forward, always achieving, always controlling. But what if true strength means turning inward? What if healing begins when we finally stop trying to outrun our own shadow? This is not a flaw in your character. It's a signal. A message from within. Asking to be heard. Not to be feared. What you're experiencing is not the end of your path. It may be the beginning of your return. Not toward perfection, but toward wholeness. The deep root of self-sabotage, a journey into the unconscious mind. When we think of self-sabotage, we often imagine someone who lacks discipline or willpower. But that idea barely scratches the surface. What if the real cause lies in a part of us we cannot see? Carl Jung believed that much of our behavior is shaped not by the conscious choices we make but by the unconscious mind that operates in the background. Like the part of an iceberg hidden beneath water. The unconscious holds repressed emotions, forgotten memories, unresolved fears, and patterns formed long ago. This part of the mind is not accessible through reason or logic. It does not speak in words. It speaks through emotion, impulse, and repetition. You may consciously want to succeed, to grow, to love. But if your unconscious mind carries old beliefs that success is dangerous or love leads to pain, it will work quietly to keep you safe by stopping you. Even if that safety costs you your happiness. We often try to push through these blocks with more effort or more motivation. But effort alone cannot overcome what we do not yet understand. To truly change, we must begin with awareness. Not just of what we want, but of what inside us resists it. The unconscious is not our enemy. It is a protector formed in times we were too young or too overwhelmed to cope. Understanding it is not about control. It is about listening to the parts of ourselves that have been silenced for too long. When desires and fears silently pull you in opposite directions, you may have a vision for your life. A goal you want to reach. A change you feel ready for. But somehow, despite all your effort, things don't move forward. You set the plan. You take the steps. And yet something invisible pulls you back. This quiet force is not always loud or dramatic. It often shows up in subtle ways. Procrast. Inattention. Doubt. A tendency to overthink. A sudden loss of motivation just when things start going well. What's happening beneath the surface? In many cases, the conscious mind wants something, while the unconscious mind fears it. You might want to be seen and appreciated. But another part of you fears judgment. You may long for success. But deep down you fear what that success might demand. The tension between the two creates an inner conflict. It feels like you are pressing both the gas and the brake at the same time. Carl Jung saw this conflict as a natural part of the human experience. He believed we all carry desires shaped by our hopes, and fears shaped by our past. When we don't acknowledge this tension, it turns into resistance. That resistance can look like failure from the outside. But inside, it's often self-protection. The mind holds back not to hurt you, but to shield you from perceived danger. To move forward, you don't need to fight yourself. You need to understand what both parts of you are trying to say. Growth comes not from ignoring fear, but from learning how to walk with it. The shadow, parts of yourself you've denied but still lead you silently. There are parts of yourself you rarely think about. A moment of jealousy you pushed aside. A memory that makes you uncomfort. A part of your personality you were told not to show. Over time, these parts get buried. Not gone, just hidden. Carl Jung called this the shadow. It is everything within us that we reject, suppress, or disown because we were taught it was wrong, unsafe, or unacceptable. The shadow is not just made of darkness. It holds emotions, traits, and truths that have been locked away. Anger you were not allowed to express. Sensitivity that was misunderstood. Desire that was shamed. These fragments of the self do not disappear. Instead, they act from the background. They show up in moments when you lose control. In habits you cannot break. In relationships that seem to repeat the same pain. You may think you are making choices freely, but often it is the shadow making them for you. The parts of yourself you try hardest to hide are often the ones that influence you the most. This is not because they are bad, but because they are unheard. To begin healing, we must stop running from the shadow. It is not a monster to be defeated. It is a part of you asking to be seen. The shadow only becomes dangerous when ignored. But when acknowledged, it becomes a gateway. Not into darkness, but into a deeper form of wholeness. Healing doesn't come from running but from stepping into the dark. Many people try to change their lives by setting goals, chasing success, or thinking more positively. But what happens when progress stalls? Even with the best intentions. The answer may lie not in pushing harder but in turning inward. Carl Jung believed that true healing begins when we face what we have long avoided. He called this process individuation. The journey of becoming whole by integrating the parts of ourselves we have rejected. Individuation is not about fixing yourself. It is about meeting yourself fully. It requires courage, not perfection. You do not become whole by pretending the shadow does not exist. You become whole by allowing it to speak. By hearing what it has been trying to tell you. This does not mean giving in to your fears or acting out your pain. It means sitting with it, understanding it, and choosing differently. We live in a world that often values constant movement and achievement. But inner growth requires stillness. It requires silence. And it requires honesty. To walk this path is to step away from who you think you should be and to meet who you truly are. The journey of individuation is not easy. It is not quick. But it is powerful. It gives you the tools to stop fighting with yourself. To stop chasing an image. and to start living with greater alignment, clarity, and peace. Healing does not begin when you escape your darkness. It begins the moment you turn to face it. Stepping into the inner journey where the shadow is no longer forgotten. The moment you begin to observe your life patterns without judgment, something shifts. You start noticing the same reactions repeating themselves. The same fears. The same ways you pull away just when things start to open. This is the beginning of the inner journey. Not one of control, but of curiosity. Instead of asking how do I fix this, you begin to ask what is this trying to show me? Carl Jung believed that by bringing unconscious content into consciousness, we gain freedom. Awareness is the first step to integration. When you can see a pattern, you are no longer trapped inside it. You can begin to work with it. This process is not about blame. It is about responsibility. It means becoming an active participant in your own healing rather than waiting for change to come from outside. The inner journey asks you to slow down and to listen. Not just to your thoughts, but to your emotions, your memories, and your body. Everything has a message. The anger you feel may not be your enemy. It may be a sign that something inside you needs protection. The sadness may not be weakness. It may be a call to return to what you once loved and abandoned. To truly change your outer life, you must first understand your inner world. The shadow does not disappear when ignored. It only quiets when it is welcomed. The more you turn toward yourself with honesty and patience, the more your life begins to shift in lasting and meaningful ways. What you fear facing today may have begun with very old wounds. Much of what holds us back in adulthood began in moments we barely remember. A word spoken sharply when we were vulnerable. A look of disappointment that made us shrink. A childhood experience that planted the idea we are not enough. These moments may seem small, but they leave imprints. Carl Jung called these imprints complexes, emotionally charged memories and beliefs that remain active in the unconscious. A complex is not just a memory. It is a pattern that repeats itself. It gets triggered when something in the present echoes something from the past. You might feel unreasonably anxious during a conversation. You might suddenly freeze before sharing your ideas. These reactions often make no logical sense. But they make emotional sense. They are the voice of an old version of you trying to stay safe. The most frustrating part is that these patterns feel automatic. You may want to act differently, but something deeper takes over. This is not weakness. It is protection. The mind learned early that certain situations bring pain. And now it moves quickly to avoid that pain. Even when the danger is no longer real. Understanding your complexes is not about blaming your past. It is about making peace with it. When you begin to see where your reactions come from, you gain power. Not power over others, but the power to choose something new. Recognizing unconscious reactions, clues to emotional knots. The unconscious does not speak in words. It speaks in patterns. Repeated reactions. Unexpected emotions. A familiar tension in your cheese. Tea when someone raises their voice. A sudden desire to withdraw when attention turns to you. These are not random responses. They are signals. Each one is a thread leading back to a moment when you're me. Andy learned what felt safe and what felt threatening. Carl Jung taught that to begin healing, we must first observe. Not fix, not judge. Simply observe. When do you feel most defensive? When do you suddenly go silent? What situations cause your body to tense or your mind to shut down? These moments often point to hidden emotional matter. The residue of past experiences still influencing the present. Identifying these reactions is not about self-criticism. It is about awareness. Until you can name a pattern, You cannot change it. Many people try to improve their lives by focusing only on goals. But true change comes from understanding the emotional forces behind behavior. Your emotions are not mistakes. They are messengers. They carry information about your inner world. Even discomfort holds value. It shows you where something in you needs attention, not punishment. The work begins by slowing down. Becoming curious. Asking gently, what is this emotion trying to tell me? And when you do, you begin to loosen the knot. One thread at a time. Inner reconciliation, when fragmented parts find a common voice. Healing is not about erasing pain. It is about integration. Many people think that growth means leaving old parts of themselves behind. ND. But Carl Jung taught that true transformation happens when we bring those parts back into awareness and allow them to take their place within us. Inside each of us are voices that were once silenced. The child who felt unseen. The teen who was ashamed. The adult who learned to survive by hiding emotion. These fragments do not disappear with time. They wait. Not to cause chaos, but to be included. Integration means listening. Not arguing. Not fixing. Listening with compassion. You do not need to agree with every part of you. But when you listen, you create space. And in that space, something shifts. The inner conflict loses its grip. The parts begin to soften. They are no longer fighting to be heard. They are finally being heard. This is the moment when healing becomes real. When your fear, anger, and sadness are no longer enemies but companions on your path. You begin to understand that what you resisted was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to teach you. Wholeness does not come from perfection. It comes from connection. When your inner world begins to work together rather than against itself, life becomes less of a struggle. You stop trying to be someone else. You start becoming more deeply yourself. From awareness to transformation, taking small steps in reality. Real change does not happen all at once. It begins with awareness, but it grows through action. You may understand your patterns, your fears, and your emotional wounds, but healing requires more than understanding. It requires movement. Not dramatic leaps, but small, steady steps taken with intention. Carl Jung believed that transformation is a dialogue between the conscious and unconscious. Once you become aware of what has been hidden, you can begin to respond to it in new ways. This might mean setting boundaries where you used to stay silent. It might mean speaking up when your instinct is to withdraw. It might mean showing kindness to yourself in moments where you used to offer only criticism. These shifts may feel small, even invisible to others. But they carry weight. Each time you choose a different response, you are rewriting the script your unconscious once controlled. You are proving to yourself that change is possible. Not because the fear disappears, but because you are willing to act in spite of it. Healing is not measured by how perfect your behavior becomes. It is measured by your willingness to return to yourself again and again. To try. To fail. To try again. With softness. With honesty. In this way, your life becomes the ground where change takes root. One small step at a time. One conscious choice after another. Compassion for yourself, the first step to healing and self-mastery. Many of us were taught to be hard on ourselves. We believe that change comes from pressure, that discipline means punishment, and that being kind to ourselves is weakness. But this approach often deepens the very wounds we are trying to heal. Carl Jung suggested that real transformation begins not with force but with compassion. Without it, any effort to grow becomes another way of rejecting ourselves. Self-compassion does not mean avoiding responsibility. It means meeting your imperfections with understanding instead of shame. It means seeing your fear not as failure but as a signal. When you Pawn to your pain with harshness, it becomes more deeply rooted. But when you meet it with care, it begins to loosen. There is strength in softness. When you offer patience to the parts of you that are afraid, those parts feel safe enough to come forward. That is where healing starts. Not in perfection, but in presence. The ability to stay with yourself even when things are uncomfortable is a form of inner power that no one can take from you. The journey of self-mastery is not about controlling your emotions. It is about learning how to hold them without being consumed. The more gently you treat yourself, the more resilient you become. Compassion is not the end of growth. It is the ground it grows from. When you no longer fight yourself, it's when you begin to be reborn. There comes a moment on the inner path when something softens. The battle within grows quieter. You no longer feel the same urgency to fix yourself, to prove yourself, or to outrun your past. Instead, you begin to sit with what is. To breathe with what hurts. To let what once frightened you become familiar. Carl Jung described this as the process of individuation, not becoming perfect, but becoming whole. It is the integration of your shadow, your light, your pain, and your potential into one unified self. When you stop fighting your own feelings, you create space for a deeper kind of transformation. One that is not driven by fear or control, but by presence and acceptance. You may still feel fear. You may still stumble. But your relationship with those experiences changes. They no longer define you. You begin to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. And slowly, a new version of you begins to emerge, one that is rooted, calm, and real. This is not a final destination. It is the unfolding of your inner life. Each day becomes a conversation with yourself, a return to the present moment. A quiet commitment to stay connected to what is true. In this space, you are not reborn as someone different. You are reborn as more fully yourself. The one you have always been. Just beneath the noise. In the end, you don't need to become anyone, just be brave enough to be yourself. After all the searching, the questions, the healing, you may discover something surprising. The person you were trying to become was never outside of you. It was always within. You spent years trying to be enough, to be better. To be someone more lovable or more successful. But what if the real work is not to become more, but to uncover what was already there? Carl Jung believed that the goal of life is not perfection, but individuation, the full realization of the unique self. Not the self others expect you to be. Not the self shaped by fear or shame. But the self that has been waiting beneath the surface all along. This path asks for courage. Not the loud kind, but the quiet strength to be honest with yourself. To face your wounds without letting them define you. To walk forward without needing every answer. It means allowing the masks to fall. And trusting that what remains is enough. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are not missing anything. Everything you have been searching for, peace, purpose, connection, begins when you stop abandoning yourself. The journey is not to escape who you are. It is to come home to it. To live in alignment with your truth. And to know that your wholeness was never a reward to earn. It was a birthright to reclaim. Meaning doesn't lie in the destination, but in how you live each moment. We often think of meaning as something we must find. A calling. A purpose. A grand answer waiting at the end of a long path. But what if meaning is not a destination to arrive at, but a relationship to the present moment? What if it lives in how you show up for your life, rather than where you are going? Carl Jung believed that wholeness is not achieved by chasing an ideal version of the self. It is cultivated by accepting and engaging fully with who you are now. The more you live with presence, the more meaning reveals itself. In a conversation where you truly listen. In a moment of stillness where you feel your breath. In the courage it takes to stay with yourself when things are uncertain. The search for meaning is not separate from healing. It is part of it. Because when you stop running from your inner life, you begin to see that every struggle, every fear, and every step you've taken has shaped something essential. Not just in who you are becoming, but in how deeply you are living. You do not have to wait for the perfect moment to feel connected. Meaning does not come later. It is available now. In how you care. In how you choose. In how you return to yourself again and again. The path you are walking may not always be clear. But with each conscious step, you are already living the meaning you once searched for. This journey was never about becoming someone else. It was always about remembering who you are beneath the fear, the noise, and the expectations. Healing is not a destination. It is a daily return. A quiet, steady choosing to be present, to be honest, and to be whole. The answers you've been seeking are not far away. They live within you, waiting for you to stop, to listen, and to trust. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming.